Howdy, it's Matt, and in this episode we're going to be taking a look at the overview to the Finwing Albabird. Now, before we go any further, I just want to stress for the record, this model was bought out of my own money from my own abuses, and I am probably a good 6, maybe something more hours into this build now, and thumbs up, she is now finished. I think the best place for us to do is to start at the back and work our way forward. So I think that's the simplest thing for us to do. So with that said, let's get to the back of the model. Now, putting this model together was relatively really straightforward, but there's one or two little caveats, and we'll get to those in a few moments. Now, they're literally starting at the back. Now, the first thing to notice is that these are not their supplied stickers. I've got to be honest, I didn't really like their supplied stickers. As many of you know, I'm not really a sticker fan. However, these are some stickers from a Repsol S800, which I had about 2 years ago, and I thought the red and white would look pretty good, and it has come out quite well. Servos all round are the Racestar metal geared servos. If you missed the memo on those, basically the genuine fake Tower Pro ones from Banggood have really gone downhill in quality, and instead go for the Racestar ones. They are a little bit more expensive and the quality is right up there. And by the way, everything which we discuss here, I'll put links to those in the video description. Yeah, so get back onto my point. The build itself, very straightforward. Their control horns are quite weird. If I pick this up and show you on the camera, you'll see what I mean. They are wonking great big aluminium ones on there, and you're not breaking those in a hurry. I was a bit of a question mark around whether I was going to fit them or not, and the answer was yeah. they weren't that heavy, a bit excessive some might say, but that's what I've been and gone with. Now, you'll notice up there on the tail is let me get this right, it is a Foxo Razor Nano, and you'll see that I've been mounted the servo up there in the tail of the model. You'll also notice that I have put a glass fibre strip in there just to give it some extra strength. Now, that's what Ben from Finwing suggested. Now, I've got to be honest with you, I don't really think it needed it. And I'm here just looking over on the side because they also did give me this great, the STL file for this great big, I've lost it, or I may have just binned it if I'm honest, this great big 3D printable platform which would sit on the top. If I turn this round, is that you could print it and sit it as a shoe on top and then put a servo on the top. Really didn't like it. It was just too big, too clumsy, and as you can see, all I've done is just bedded in a servo into the tail and used a bit of hot glue and put some laminate over it, and that has worked out really well. On the topic of laminating, this model was not the hardest model which I've ever laminated, but I'd also say it's not the easiest model which I've ever laminated, as in that there were some compound angles around here, up around the GPS puck, etc, which made it a slightly trickier laminating job, but not impossible. And over the last 3 days I've just chipped away at it, and today is which I think is actually the 4th day, I have just been and finished it off. Now, a tip for those of you which are laminating your own Alba wing, always do the features first. So do the motor mount, so cut out a square like that, do the bottom, if it needs to bend anywhere, cut it out, and always work from the back to the front so you don't end up with any seams which can pick up dirt. So slip outwards like that and then put the fingers round, then do the top piece, and the same on the other side. Up here on the fuselage, do the GPS puck and any other features be filter, and then again work from the back to the front of the model. And yeah, a little bit fiddly in a few places, but hey ho. And now moving on to the actual build of the model, it was relatively straightforward to do. What I would say is that perhaps compared to a mini Talon, for example, is that the one thing which I would have liked to have seen, I think would definitely improve this model, it was that it would be nice to have some horizontal carbon rods or glass fibre rods which run from the front of the models to the back of the model. That is one thing which you can now give Zo HD their due, even up there in the Drift and in the Dart 250, is that you do have, and again it's in the mini Talon, you have rods which run from the front of the model to the back, and typically it's the nose which snaps off or the tail snaps off where the rod isn't in the model itself. Now, obviously, my tail, you can get these with the tail which comes off. That's definitely not something which I'd be interested in, and the whole tail section is designed around that. I have used extra glue, and I've got to be honest with you, I did put their Albabird sticker on the side just to cover up some of the yellow Yoo-hoo pour glue, which I used to put this model together. Now, that's what I've been and got in there. I will get to the wiring in a moment, okay? Moving forwards to the wings, very, very straightforward to laminate, again, but with the complication of the motor mount. Now, there is one thing which I want to cover with you, and it's the only other negative which I found during the build of the model, which is that this foam is a little bit on the softer side. Now, I know some of you, and I put this question in the RC Rebels group. I didn't want to put it in the Finwing group for obvious reasons. And actually Ben came back to me with a really nice reply, etc, etc. However, the foam in my model, if you look, I'm just going to roll this backwards, you will see the dents in that wing, okay? The wing, both wings, and the front half of the fuselage, the foam is definitely soft, okay? The motor mount, the lid, the tail, the elevator, and this nose section, the foam is perfectly good. However, the foam which I've got on the wings and the fuselage, it is definitely soft, and I've left thumbprints in the foam all over the place, and I'm a little bit wary of like showing you how soft it is, because I think it will really dent quite easily. So it's definitely a lower density foam than what I'm compared to, and again, I'm just looking like the Wingwing Z84, which I've got up there next to me, and the Mini Talon, which apparently is made in exactly the same factory. The foam on the fuselage part is definitely softer, and the same for the wings. The other piece is, it's a little bit odd, okay? Now, is that a bad thing? Not really. It's not ideal, if I've got to be honest, but remember, this was my own model. I paid best part of £100+ for this, including shipping, and I have been and laminated it, so that will keep it nice and clean. And I've also heard from several of you about the robustness of the model, and it has worked out quite well. So yeah, moving forwards, and we'll get to the electronics last. Okay, well, we'll get to the motors and then we'll get to see what's inside. You'll notice that we do have a position for a GPS puck on top. It was a bit weird with the wiring underneath. I've hot glued it and put a bit of tape on it, and they have been and made this cutout in here for the GPS wire to fit down there, and that does work quite well. And of course, you may have noticed the thumb screws which are all over the shop. There's one thumb screw in the tail, there's one thumb screw to hold down the lid, and there's also a thumb screw to hold down the front canopy as well. Staying in the middle section is that I do like their catch for this nose section. That's a very positive catch in there. I think it would probably fly even if you didn't do that up. I don't think it's going to fall anywhere. Up here in the nose section, let's go and zoom in a touch. Now, I have been and fitted, and I always get questions about the pan and tilts. I will put a link to this in the video description for you. It was made by Keith Lanou, who's bona fide pirate, and it's the pan and tilt system for the Runcam Hybrid. Now, I will review the Runcam Hybrid separately. I paid about 84 quid for that, and it came a short while ago. It was meant to go on the binary, but thank goodness I didn't put it on that one, because that one tip-stalled and went in. Tiny little plastic servo on the top, and I've got a 180-degree servo underneath and a cheap one on the top, which gives us the pan and tilt, and we will see that in action in just a moment. Now, coming back out again for the motors. Now, I have been and gone for Sunny Sky. Let me just get this right. I think they're X22, 12, 13, and these are 980 kV motors. I bought these specifically, and they were meant for the binary, but they turned up late for the binary, so I used some 1250 kVs. Now, I am using HQ props, which are, let me get this right, 7x4.5, and they're slightly transparent. And I've got to admit that I thought that was going to be heavily under props. However, me and the wife have had it over there on the desktop using iNav, and I've powered this thing up, and on 4S, even on 980 kV, there is tons of thrust in there which will definitely keep this model in the sky. So propellers, I can definitely go up to an 8-inch, and I could probably do an 8-inch tri-blade if I wanted to. They are counter-rotating props. I'm not too sure how long that will last though, because remember with counter-rotating props, because these are standard threads, is that if I was to hit that side in the grass, I could potentially undo the nut. Okay, so we'll see how it does, and I'll play around with the propellers. Right. I tell you what, while we're here, we'll just quickly flip it upside down so you can have a nose underneath as well. Let me turn this upside down. In the, the right wing, I've got the Crossfire Mini V2, sorry, Micro V2 receiver. You'll notice quite a lot of cables coming down. So you've got 5 volts and ground, and then of course S-bus, and then for the 3 additional channels which come out of that receiver, I run in all 3 channels down so I can pick them out. That will make sense in a moment. For the ESCs, I'm using the Racestar 30 amp quad ESCs. I think they're going to be perfectly fine, but obviously check back later over a period of time, but I'm not expecting any issues. And then of course out on the left wing, it's left wing, we got the video transmitter and the antenna there as well. Okay, and you'll of course notice the Racestar servos. Of course, like I mentioned a few moments ago, I will include links to everything which I've been and used in my model, and remember those will be affiliate links, so if you do use those links you will be supporting this channel. Remember, something which I'm always 100% open about. So let's go and take a look at the electronics inside. Now, I've got to admit, this isn't the ideal flight controller for this model, although it will work, and I'm sure it'll work fantastically well. This is the Maytech F722 standard flight controller, and I have the Hub-W wing board underneath. Now that is a custom 3D mounted platform underneath there. I will again put a link to that in the video description for you, so if you've got that wing board you can use it with your model, and I'm just using elastic bands to hold it in. Now you'll notice that there's a lot of wiring in here, and that's one thing which I actually wanted to show you, is that here in the UK we've got a company called Screwfit. No, I bought these on eBay. Let me get this right. Yeah, you can pick these up in your hardware store, and what I'm using is lots and lots of these inside of the model. So it's just a double-sided sticky foam thing, and you have a little foam catch in there, so you can put your cables through and then just click it up and it will restrain your cables. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, probably 10 of those in the model itself. Also, what I've tried to do is that I've tried to separate the 2 sides of the model, so we have all wiring going of servos etc down the right hand side of the model, and then power lines down the left hand side of the model. There is one exception, which is the FPV wires and the pan and tilt which run in the bottom of there, but they are definitely separated sensibly away from the power lines themselves. I did go with the wing PDB because it does have a current sensor on there, so I can see how much over a period of time I can calibrate it. Oh, by the way, if you want to know how to calibrate the sensors on one of these, I'll put a link to that in the top right hand corner. It's a very simple, straightforward process which I'll cover here later. Now, the one negative of using that flight controller is that you only have a single camera input. So if I zoom out a moment to put this into context, is that if I go back here and pull out that, is that there is a three-way camera switcher. I'll put, like I said, I'll put links to all the parts which I'm using in the video description. And that's a three-way camera switcher. And you may notice, well, Matt, you got three-way, but you've only got 2 cameras. Well, the answer to that is yes. And all I've done is just taken the feed from the main camera, the nose of the camera, and then just put a splitter wire on it and put it for camera inputs number 1, 2, and then the rear-facing camera is camera input number 3. Now, I will show you on the screen what this looks like in just a moment, because it is super, super cool. So yeah, that's what I've got set up there in the flight controller. It's iNav version 2.5.1, and it has worked out. I've used that same version in several other models, and it has worked out really, really well. So with that said, what I'm going to quickly do, let's go and get this thing powered up, and then we'll have a look here on the FPV camera, and we can see what it's like. Fantastic. There we go. Okay. So you're going to have to excuse the camera. the colour of the camera. We're in here and I have a massive, great big bright light here behind me. So the first thing which I want to show you is, and it's a real daft point, is that make sure that but before we go any further about multiple camera setup, is that make sure you always set up your failsafe so that if your transmitter failsafes or your model failsafes, that your pan and tilt always point forwards. Sounds really daft, but make sure you do that. So that's the camera view which we've got right there. Okay, now let me go and click that switch and you will see that rear view camera. Let me just move the wrong one. How badass is that for a rear view camera? There, how much of a view? You can see the wing down there. Apologies for the reflection, okay? But just look how much range of view which you've got down there. That is going to be so cool when I'm up in the sky. It literally is about 180 degrees. Well, no, you know what I mean. It's good 90 degrees in both directions. It is well cool. It's going to be so sweet in the sky. And then the other mode is the front camera. So not only if I have pan, left and right, which I can go around and see both motors, I also have tilt as well. So let's put that back around to the middle and turn that off. So yeah, pan and tilt twice on here, and if you're wondering what I'm doing with my transmitter, is that I've got it set up on a three-way switch. So this one's put another is pointing forwards and coming from the main cam. When I go to the middle switch on there, it actually flicks to the rear camera. So let's zoom out for a moment. There we go. And then you'll have a look at that rear camera back there. Is that if I now move the slider on the right hand side, you'll see it spin in. Okay, and then if I click forwards to flaps, as it tells me on there, which was set up with a binary, is that I now do pan like so, and then tilt with the main camera on the front, and of course I'll put that all the way back. And remember, my failsafe is set with that being off, so the camera ends up pointing forwards. So there you go, that is the overview to the Albabird. It has taken me several days to do that. Oh, one thing which I didn't mention, actually my bad, is that remember back up underneath the wing I said about on that receiver I also had 3 extra channels coming out. And the reason why I had 3 extra channels coming out is that, to my great annoyance, is that the very latest version of the TBS software on my transmitter is that I am no longer able to have one line on channel 1 from the receiver, which is on that side, coming in with S-Bus on it, and then you used to be able on channel 4 also have S-Bus or PPM coming on that 4th channel. You cannot do that anymore, which is really frustrating, because I was going to use one of these PWM/S-Bus converters and then get all the extra channels out. So those switches on the transmitter were on channels 8, 9 and 10. Okay, and I could have got them out on this special breakout board, but I couldn't do that. So what I've now got is channel 1 is S-Bus, and then I've mapped the receiver to output channels 8, 9 and 10 on those 3 additional channels on the receiver. Those wires come in, and then that's what powers the camera switcher and the pan and tilt. Okay, so one channel changes the camera between the rear and the front camera. Then I've got 2 other channels, which is one is the pan servo and one is for the tilt servo. I hope that makes sense. It sounds a bit complicated, but actually when you do it, it does turn out to be remarkably easy. It was just really frustrating. I couldn't have done it the way perhaps which I wanted to have, for it to have worked. Now, just another note is that perhaps if I had a different flight controller in there, maybe a one which has got more PWM outputs, what I could have done is had a stabilized camera on the nose. So is that what I could have done is stabilize the video footage on the front using iNav to power the pan and tilt for this here rear servo, for the front servo, and maybe had the rear one on a separate servo and the front one maybe had stabilized footage. But that's not the flight controller which I've got in there. Maybe a topic for a different day with a different flight controller as and when the need arises. Now, I've got to be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure of the all-up weight on this model. If I do weigh it, I'll put it in a breakout board on the bottom. But now that I've been and worked on it for, and it is literally several hours over the course of 3 to 4 days, I do kind of like the look of it. I'm not going to pass any judgment on the way which it actually looks. It has been quite an enjoyable build, a very straightforward build in reality, it's just a few oddities. And the only one negative which I can say is, well, one is around the rear tail fixing, which I've got copious amounts of hot glue in there, so I don't think that's going to come off anytime soon. But it really is around this foam. My foam on here is definitely very soft, but then these parts here and the tail are absolutely fine. It's a little bit strange. It's just this fuselage and these wings, they're quite soft, and as we saw a few moments ago, that you can see the dents in the wings, and that's literally just from laminating it. I've not put any, it's not even flown yet, and it's got a few dents in it, which is a bit frustrating, but I know other people have said that theirs have been fine. And I also know some people have said, like with the wrap packs which turned up, I've been spoiled by that foam, and no, that's not the case at all. The foam is soft in the fuselage. Sorry, I'm squeezing that bit's fine. This fuselage and the wings, the foam is definitely soft. I don't think it's going to disintegrate in the sky. It is what it is. I can't change it, and I think it's going to be perfectly fine. But it's one of those things which is definitely worth noting, because it was kind of obvious the more which I worked with the model. Anyway, let's get away from that negative for a few moments. I don't think this model is going to be a dirty tip staller like that binnery which we had here a short while ago, which I basically wasted 82 quid, and I'll never get those 8 hours which I worked on it back. Oh, and then of course the extra time which will take to edit the videos up for it. So I think, perfectly honest, I think the Albabird is the one which I should have bought in the first place. So my bad. In short, I should have bought this one originally. I saw what everybody was saying about it, and yeah, we'll find out very shortly. Maiden Day this week at some point. We're supposed to have some really good weather. I'm actually looking out the window now. Perhaps it's a little bit windy for a maiden at least, but maybe later today, tomorrow, fingers crossed, we'll get it out and I'll pass on my views. So with that said, if you're new here, howdy, I'm Matt, welcome aboard. Don't forget to press the subscribe button, and of course also to press the bell notification, because the next video which comes out could quite well be the maiden of this Albabird, or perhaps a different model which we've got here as a work in progress, because I do have several on the go at the moment. Any questions or comments, let me know down in the comments section underneath this video here on YouTube. And again, let me just stress, this model was bought out of my own money from my own abuses, and I know I'm late to the party with the Albabird, and that's absolutely fine. And sorry, my point about this model was bought out of my own money is that it wasn't a freebie sent here for review. This is my own model, and you can see I've spent a shitload of time here working on it, and I've set it up the way which I want it to be set up, which obviously might be different to perhaps yours. I'll put a full itinerary of everything which I've used here, and of course once I've got this model tuned in and set up with iNav, in the maiden video I'll also include the settings from iNav which I've got for this board, and at least that will get you off to a flying start with yours. Anyway, with that said, for myself, Matt, a big thank you to you for taking the time to join me here at the workbench. Has been a pleasurable, albeit a long build, which has taken me a couple of days, but I'm not complaining. It's kind of grown on me, and to be honest, my favourite bit, I like the stickers on the nose. That is my favourite bit up here on the nose. It kind of looks like a funky passenger liner. So yeah, stories on these are pretty good. They do apparently fly ridiculously well, and I cannot wait to experience that. Oh, one thing which I didn't mention, the wings. You can break this model down into pieces. The tail fin does come off. There's just a plastic bolt like this one here, which I'm undoing, and the tail, you can take that off, and of course the servo wire's just hanging here on the side. The wing joiners here, big plastic thumb screws. You can take the wings off if you wanted to. They did supply some VGA connectors, which you can obviously tell I didn't use, okay? Although I think they would probably be fine for everything bar the ESC wires. I think they would have worked out absolutely fine. But yeah, my model, my way. Apologies, well, no apologies, because that's just the way which I felt most comfortable with setting up. Oh, and I also did like the motor mounts. Motor mounts very good. The motor mounts on the binary, absolutely awful. Atrocious. These ones really nice and strong, and those motors are in there very securely, and again, like I mentioned, the foam in these motor pods for me was super tough, and I think that it's going to be, again, with the glue which I used and the laminate, these are not falling off anytime soon. Anyway, gone off topic. From myself, Matt, thank you very much for taking the time to join me here at the workbench, and I'll see you again shortly. Cheerios!